Living with a Scorpio moon isn't about being dramatic. It's about being unable to experience life halfway. From the outside, it may look quiet, composed, even detached. But internally, there is constant movement, emotional currents shifting beneath the surface, memories breathing, instincts scanning for truth. A Scorpio moon doesn't just feel emotions, they inhabit them. This is the placement of someone who walks through a world that skims, a world that prefers lightness, speed, distraction, while carrying a depth that cannot be rushed, diluted, or explained away. And over time, they learn something painful but necessary. Most people don't actually want emotional truth. They want comfort. They want ease. They want feelings that don't ask too much of them. So the Scorpio moon adapts, not by becoming shallow, but by becoming private. They learn to hold their emotions the way one would hold something sacred, carefully, selectively, away from hands that might mishandle it. Because when you feel this deeply, exposure without safety doesn't feel brave, it feels reckless. This placement is emotionally awake in a world that prefers to stay asleep. And to live with a Scorpio moon is to carry that awareness everywhere you go, quietly, constantly, and often alone. Chapter 1: Born into Emotional Depth. A Scorpio moon doesn't wake up one day and become emotionally intense. They arrive that way. From an early age, there's often a sense that something is happening beneath the surface in the home, in relationships, in the people around them, even when no one is talking about it. They pick up on tone shifts, emotional absences, unspoken power dynamics, what's being avoided, what's being hidden. While other children are reacting to what's visible, the Scorpio moon child is responding to what's felt. They may not have had the language for it yet, but they understood something instinctively. Emotions aren't just reactions, they're environments. And once you're inside them, they shape you. This is why Scorpio moons often mature emotionally earlier than others. Not because they had an easy upbringing, but because they had to read between the lines to feel safe. They learned early that truth isn't always spoken, and that what's left unsaid can carry more weight than what's expressed. And so depth becomes their default. They don't skim feelings, they descend into them. They want to know what's real, what's lasting, what's dangerous, and what's worth holding on to. Surface level explanations never satisfy them because they can feel when something doesn't go far enough. But this depth comes at a cost. When you feel this much, this early, you also learn restraint. You learn that not everyone can hold what you carry, that some people get uncomfortable when emotions linger too long or cut too close to the truth. So the Scorpio moon begins to contain themselves, not out of fear, but out of discernment. They become selective about where their emotions go, who gets access, who deserves to know what actually moves them. This is the origin of the Scorpio moon's privacy, not secrecy, but protection. Because when emotions are this powerful, they aren't meant to be passed around casually. They're meant to be honored, respected, understood. And from that point on, the Scorpio moon walks through life knowing something most people don't realize until much later. Depth isn't something you develop, it's something you survive and learn to live with. Chapter 2: Feeling Everything, Saying Almost Nothing. For a Scorpio moon, silence is not emptiness, it's containment. There's a misconception that if someone isn't expressing emotion, they must not be feeling much. But with this placement, the opposite is true. Scorpio moon often says less because they feel more. Their internal experience is already so full, so layered, that releasing it indiscriminately would feel destabilizing. They don't speak from impulse, they speak from certainty. Every emotion passes through an internal filter first. Is this safe? Is this real? Will it be respected? And if the answer isn't a quiet yes, the feeling stays inside, not suppressed, just held. This is why Scorpio moons are often misunderstood. People mistake their restraint for coldness, their composure for distance, their pauses for indifference. But what's actually happening is emotional compression, an entire inner world folded neatly behind calm eyes. They may sit in a room, listening more than speaking, absorbing tone, watching body language, feeling what isn't being said. While others release emotions to regulate themselves, Scorpio Moon internalizes to understand, and understanding matters more to them than relief. When they do speak, it's deliberate, precise, weighted. Words are chosen carefully because once something is said, it can't be taken back. And Scorpio Moon doesn't waste emotional truth on moments or people that haven't earned it. There's also a deeper reason for the silence, one that isn't always conscious. For Scorpio Moon, emotion is power, not power over others, but power over the self. Speaking too freely can feel like giving that power away. Letting someone see too much too soon can feel like surrendering control of something sacred. So they wait, they let feelings mature internally, they sit with them, they test them against time, because emotions that survive silence are usually the ones worth honoring. This doesn't mean Scorpio moons don't long to be understood. They do, deeply. But they want to be felt, not interrogated, met, not dissected. They're listening for resonance, for someone who can hear what isn't said and respond without forcing it into words. And when that doesn't happen, they grow quieter, not because they've shut down, but because they've learned that depth offered to the wrong ears can be misunderstood, minimized, or used against them. So they protect it, they keep it close, they let it live where it's safe. Feeling everything and saying almost nothing isn't emotional avoidance, it's emotional sovereignty. And for the Scorpio moon, that silence isn't absence, it's presence, concentrated, controlled, and profoundly alive beneath the surface. Chapter 3: The Loneliness of Seeing Too Much. There's a particular kind of loneliness that comes from perception, not the loneliness of being alone, but the loneliness of being aware. A Scorpio moon doesn't just listen to words, they listen to what trails behind them, the hesitation, the emotional deflection, the places where someone changes tone, avoids a subject, or fills silence too quickly. They feel when someone's energy doesn't match their explanation. And over time, this creates distance, not because they want separation, but because they can't pretend not to notice. While others move comfortably through life, taking things at face value, the Scorpio moon is constantly processing what's underneath. Power dynamics, emotional debts, unspoken desires, hidden resentments. They may not call it out, they may not confront it, but they register it, and once you see something clearly, you can't unsee it. This is where the isolation begins because most people don't want to be fully seen. They want to be liked, they want to be validated, they want to be comforted, not mirrored back to themselves with emotional accuracy. And the Scorpio moon, without trying to, often becomes that mirror. They notice when affection is conditional, when loyalty has limits, when closeness is being performed rather than felt. And even if they never say a word, the awareness changes how they move. They start to pull back, not dramatically, not with accusation, but with quiet recalibration. They offer less access, less emotional reach, less of themselves, because depth shared with someone who isn't meeting it doesn't feel generous, it feels draining. This is why Scorpio moons can feel lonely even when surrounded by people. Conversation happens, laughter fills the room, connection appears to be there, but something essential is missing: the unspoken understanding, the willingness to sit with discomfort, the courage to acknowledge emotional truth without rushing to resolve it. So they retreat inward, not to isolate, but to stay sane. They find solace in their inner world because it's the only place where depth isn't questioned or minimized, where emotions can exist without being explained, justified, or softened for others' comfort. And yet, despite this solitude, Scorpio moons still long to be met. Not by everyone, but by someone who can see as deeply as they do, someone who doesn't flinch at emotional intensity, someone who doesn't require translation when silence speaks louder than words. Until that happens, they walk with an awareness that quietly separates them from the crowd, not above it, not below it, just apart. Because when you see too much, you learn something early on. Depth connects selectively, and not everyone is meant to follow you there. Chapter 4, Trust is never given lightly. For a Scorpio moon, trust is not a feeling, it's a process. It doesn't happen because of attraction, chemistry, or shared interests. It happens slowly through observation, consistency, and emotional behavior over time. Words alone don't earn access. What matters is how someone handles vulnerability when it's inconvenient, how they behave when they're not being watched, what they do with emotional information once it's been offered. Because for the Scorpio moon, trust isn't about closeness, it's about safety. They've learned, often early, that emotional exposure without protection can be costly, that not everyone who listens is equipped to hold what they're given. Some people pry, some misuse, some minimize, some betray without ever realizing they've done so. So Scorpio moon becomes discerning. They don't open emotionally all at once. They test the waters. They share something small, not to manipulate, but to observe. Do you respect it? Do you remember it? Do you treat it carefully? Or do you dismiss it, joke about it, repeat it, or rush past it? Every interaction is data. This is why Scorpio moons can seem guarded or slow to attach. It's not because they lack emotion, it's because they value it too much to gamble. Emotional intimacy, to them, is an exchange of power. And power given to the wrong person doesn't just hurt, it destabilizes. Once trust is established, however, the bond is profound. Scorpio moon doesn't half commit emotionally. When they let someone in, they do so with depth, loyalty, and an almost instinctive protectiveness. They remember what matters to you. They notice your moods. They feel invested in your emotional reality, not just your presence. But this level of bonding requires certainty. They need to know that if they reveal something raw, fear, desire, attachment, pain, it won't be used as leverage later. They need to know that emotional closeness won't suddenly be withdrawn as punishment or control, because inconsistency is one of the fastest ways to break a Scorpio moon's trust. And when trust breaks, it doesn't shatter loudly. There's no dramatic confrontation, no emotional explosion, just a quiet internal decision, access revoked. They may remain polite, cordial, even kind, but the emotional door closes, not out of spite, but out of self preservation. Once safety is compromised, depth retreats, and Scorpio moon rarely reopens a door that had to be forcibly closed. This is the paradox of the Scorpio moon. They crave deep connection, yet require immense proof before allowing it. Not because they're afraid of love, but because they understand the cost of letting the wrong person hold something precious. Trust to a Scorpio moon isn't given. It's earned carefully, deliberately, and with full awareness of what's at stake. Chapter 5, Emotional Memory is a Permanent Archive. A Scorpio moon does not forget. Not in the casual sense, not in the time heals sense. Every experience, every slight, every joy, every betrayal, every moment of tenderness is recorded. Not just remembered, but archived in layers. The emotion, the intention behind it, the subtle shifts no one else noticed. They feel things as deeply as they live them. And when an emotion is felt fully, it doesn't simply fade. It becomes part of the architecture of their inner world. This is why old wounds can linger longer than expected, and why past connections can echo years later. It's not obsession, it's memory meticulously stored and vividly alive. A Scorpio moon doesn't relive memories to torture themselves, they relive them because they are inseparable from the self. The intensity of a Scorpio moon is not an emotional choice, it is the sum total of experiences remembered in full. People may come and go, seasons change, relationships dissolve, but the emotional imprint remains, quietly shaping perceptions, reactions, and expectations. It's also why Scorpio moons have a sixth sense about people. They can sense inconsistencies not because they're suspicious, but because they can feel echoes of prior patterns. They carry the emotional residue of past encounters as a kind of internal guide. This permanent archive isn't just about pain, it's about truth. Every memory holds a lesson, a warning, a recognition of beauty or betrayal. They remember what mattered, what moved them, and what endangered their emotional integrity. And the effect is profound. Scorpio moons approach life with a heightened awareness. Every connection is informed by everything that came before. Every word, every glance, every act of care or cruelty is filtered through their emotional history. To love a Scorpio moon is to know that nothing is fleeting. Every moment you give them your honesty, your loyalty, your energy, it is held, preserved, and treasured. And if you break their trust, you will not simply fade from their memory, you will exist there, a permanent entry in the archive of their heart. In a world that forgets easily, the Scorpio moon remembers. And in remembering, they remain deeply alive to life, even when it hurts. Chapter 6, Loving with Totality. A Scorpio moon does not love lightly, not in gestures, not in words, not in fleeting attention. Love for them is immersion, full, unguarded, and all encompassing for those they deem worthy. It's not about grand displays or public affirmation. It's about depth of presence, about being felt and understood in ways that most people don't even know exist. When a Scorpio moon loves, they bring their entire internal world, their fears, their memories, their instincts, their intensity, all of it. And they do so not because they expect the same in return, though they often receive it. They do so because love is a force that demands participation. Half hearted gestures, casual attention, or superficial attachments cannot satisfy them. They feel everything you offer, everything you withhold, everything you fail to recognize, and it matters. Every small action carries meaning. Every word, every silence, every hesitation is interpreted through the prism of their emotional depth. And when they commit emotionally, they commit completely. There is no holding back. Their loyalty is absolute. Their care is meticulous. Their desire to protect, nurture, and understand you is unwavering. But this totality has its shadows. For someone who cannot love lightly, rejection, betrayal, or emotional inconsistency is magnified. Hurt is not easily forgotten because they remember the intensity of what was given and the depth of what was expected. And when love fails them, it cuts more sharply than it might for someone who only skimmed the surface. Yet, even in pain, there is resilience. The Scorpio moon's capacity for total love ensures that when they find someone who resonates at their level, the connection is transformative, not casual, not temporary. It leaves a mark indelible, profound, and often unseen by the outside world. To love a Scorpio moon is to be witnessed fully and completely by someone who will never treat your emotions lightly. It is to feel seen in ways that most people cannot offer. And it is to understand that love for them is never measured, it is lived fully and without reservation. Chapter 7, The Fear of Emotional Powerlessness. For a Scorpio moon, the stakes of feeling are always high. They love with totality, but that intensity comes with a deep underlying fear, the fear of being powerless in their own emotions. This is not fear in a casual sense. It is the understanding, often instinctual, that when you feel deeply, there is a vulnerability that others can exploit, even unintentionally. Emotional surrender without boundaries can feel like surrendering part of the self. And a Scorpio moon who treasures the integrity of their inner world cannot afford that lightly. They do not crave control over others, as some might assume. Their need is internal control over how their emotions are experienced, shared, and safeguarded. They protect the intensity of what they feel because it is precious, potent, and transformative. When emotions are mishandled, dismissed, mocked, or exploited, the Scorpio moon knows it immediately. And because they experience feelings so profoundly, the consequences of emotional misalignment are magnified. Betrayal is not just painful, it feels like a rupture in the fabric of their internal world. This fear shapes how they love, how they trust, and how they navigate relationships. It explains their caution, their selectivity, their silence when most would speak. By maintaining this emotional sovereignty, they ensure that the depth of what they feel remains intact. Yet, paradoxically, this fear does not stop them from giving everything when they are certain. When a Scorpio moon opens, it is with full awareness of risk, conscious choice to allow someone into the sanctuary of their heart. They do so with reverence, protection, and an expectation that their vulnerability will be honored, not violated. And if it is violated, the retreat is quiet but absolute. They do not chase what endangers them. They withdraw, not from spite, but from the need to preserve the power and sanctity of their emotions. To be loved by a Scorpio moon is to be trusted with something sacred, and to lose that trust is to be aware, silently but permanently, of the weight of what you once held in your hands. Chapter 8, The Private Inner World No One Enters. For a Scorpio moon, there is a part of themselves that exists entirely apart from the world. It is a space that cannot be touched lightly, explained, or rushed, a sanctuary built from years of observing, feeling, and understanding what others cannot. This inner world is not just private, it is sacred. It is where emotions are held in their full intensity, unfiltered and unjudged, where joys are amplified, sorrows are honored, and memories exist in their purest form. It is a place of truth, untouched by superficiality or misunderstanding. Most people will never see this, and that is intentional. To allow anyone into this space is not casual. It is a test, a revelation, a trust extended to the rare few who can handle its gravity. Within this private world, Scorpio moons process everything that life throws at them, the betrayals that never left their hearts unmarked, the fleeting moments of connection that left permanent impressions, the emotions too intense, too sacred, or too dangerous to share with just anyone. And in protecting this space, they also protect themselves because in a world that values ease over depth, disclosure over understanding, revealing too much too soon is a risk they cannot afford. Yet paradoxically, this inner world is alive. It's not a fortress to keep people out, it's a crucible where emotions are distilled, refined, and transformed into insight, where pain becomes wisdom, where love becomes devotion, where every feeling has a place, a purpose, and a permanence. To glimpse this world, even for a moment, is to feel the full weight of the Scorpio moon's being. It is to understand why they love so fully, trust so cautiously, and retreat so silently. And to live alongside this depth is not always easy. It can feel like standing next to a storm contained within a crystal. Beautiful, dangerous, sacred. But for those who are worthy, it is also one of the most profound experiences a human heart can encounter. Chapter 9, When the World Feels Too Loud and Too Light. For a Scorpio moon, the world often feels like a shallow echo. It moves quickly, it laughs easily, it rewards surface level charm, fleeting attention, and conversations that skim over emotion. And while most people float comfortably on this current, the Scorpio moon feels every ripple, every undercurrent, every weight the world refuses to notice. This creates a quiet tension. The world is noisy. They notice the half truths, the unspoken intentions, the emotional shortcuts that others take. They feel the gaps between people's words and their hearts. And because they experience life in intensity, this disparity can feel like friction, constant, subtle, unavoidable. In social spaces, they may appear calm, composed, even detached, but internally they are immersed. Every laugh that is forced, every gesture that is performative, every shallow compliment, it registers. Every mask, every avoidance, every half hearted connection, it resonates. This is why Scorpio moons can feel out of place in a world that prizes lightness. They are not shallow. They cannot be. They live in a space where emotion is alive, potent, and permanent, and yet most of the world refuses to engage at that depth. It can feel isolating, exhausting, even lonely, because no matter how much they try to meet others halfway, the surface will never satisfy the depth within. They may leave gatherings feeling unseen, conversations feeling empty, connections feeling fleeting, and yet this dissonance does not break them. It sharpens them. It teaches them discernment. It reminds them of what truly matters. Those rare souls willing to meet them where they live emotionally, those who can handle the storm without fear, and those who recognize the gravity of their presence. The Scorpio moon learns to navigate this world quietly, selectively. They conserve their emotional energy for moments and people who matter, for spaces where depth is not a liability but a gift. And in doing so, they survive, not by blending in, but by honoring the sacredness of their own inner currents. Chapter 10: Why They Walk Away Without Explaining. A Scorpio moon doesn't leave lightly. They don't storm out in anger, lash out in drama, or make a scene. When they walk away, it is quiet, deliberate, and complete, and often misunderstood by the outside world. This isn't cruelty, it's preservation. They have already invested deeply, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and if they sense that their depth is being undervalued, ignored, or mishandled, they choose to withdraw rather than negotiate endlessly for acknowledgement. Their emotional energy is too precious to waste on someone unwilling or unable to meet it. To the casual observer, this may seem sudden or inexplicable, but for a Scorpio moon, the decision has often been brewing for weeks, months, even years. Every moment of imbalance, every instance of disregard, every betrayal, it is quietly logged and assessed. And when the final threshold is crossed, the exit is swift in its silence. Walking away is not about punishment, it is about self preservation and maintaining the integrity of their inner world. They do not need to justify themselves. Words are unnecessary when the truth is already clear to them. Emotional misalignment is a deal breaker, and once it becomes undeniable, the door closes. Even in absence, however, they continue to feel. They carry memories, lessons, and the emotional weight of what was lost. The bond may be severed outwardly, but internally, a part of them remains attentive, reflective, and aware. This is why Scorpio moons can be present even in absence, because the heart archives what cannot be discarded. And this is also why reconnecting with a Scorpio moon once they have decided to leave is never straightforward. It isn't about resentment or spite, it's about the inviolable protection of something sacred, the emotional integrity they have fought to maintain. Walking away is their way of saying, I have loved fully, but I will not be diminished in the process. My depth is not negotiable, and neither is my peace. In a world that often fails to match their intensity. The Scorpio Moon's silent departure is both a shield and a statement. To protect what is profound, they must sometimes vanish from what is shallow. Chapter 11: The Alchemy of Pain. For a Scorpio moon, pain is never wasted, it is never meaningless. Every heartbreak, betrayal, loss, or disappointment is absorbed, studied, and transformed, distilled into insight, resilience, and self understanding. They do not numb themselves to suffering, they do not distract or dismiss it. They sit with it fully until it teaches what it needs to teach. And in this alchemy, something profound happens. The pain becomes a catalyst for growth. This is why Scorpio moons are often misunderstood. People see the intensity, the quiet vigilance, the emotional complexity, and mistake it for drama or morbidity. But in truth, the Scorpio moon is practicing emotional refinement. They turn trauma into wisdom, heartbreak into self knowledge, and betrayal into boundaries. They understand the value of suffering in a way few do. It sharpens perception, clarifies priorities, and solidifies emotional sovereignty. Each wound is a teacher, each scar a map of what must be protected, nurtured, and honored. And paradoxically, this depth of processing allows them to love again, not in the naive, unguarded way, but in a way that is fully informed, fully present, and fully intentional. Their hearts remain open, but more discerning. Their loyalty becomes rarer and more precious. Their connections are no longer casual. They are deliberate, sacred, and transformative. To live with the Scorpio moon is to witness this process. It is to see how the heart bends under weight and yet emerges stronger, sharper, and more alive than before. Pain is not a limitation, it is a forge. And the Scorpio moon carries its fire quietly, illuminating their path while never allowing the world to dictate their depth. They have learned that emotional survival is not about avoiding pain, it is about transforming it into power, insight, and unshakable presence. Chapter 12: Emotional Loyalty That Never Dies. For a Scorpio moon, attachment is never fleeting. It does not end simply because circumstances change, because distance grows, or because life demands separation. When they connect deeply, emotionally, spiritually, and mentally, that bond becomes part of their internal landscape, permanent and indelible. This is not obsession, it is memory, reverence, and fidelity. The people they care about are never truly gone from their consciousness. Even when silence stretches for years, even when paths diverge, Scorpio moons continue to carry those connections quietly, without expectation, without interference, without fanfare. Their loyalty is not transactional. It is not conditional. It is woven into the fabric of who they are. They do not keep score, but they do keep memory. They do not demand reciprocation, but they do honor the significance of what was shared. And this makes them profoundly reliable in ways few can measure or understand. And yet, this loyalty is paired with discernment. It is not indiscriminate, it is not blind. Only those who have touched their inner world meaningfully, honestly, and respectfully occupy this sacred space. Those who have breached trust, deceived, or failed to honor emotional depth are remembered too, but differently, with quiet closure, not resentment. To love a Scorpio moon is to know that they remember everything that matters, even when they appear distant, even when they withdraw, even when the world assumes they have moved on. Their heart archives truth and significance, and once something is placed there, it remains. This is why connections with a Scorpio moon feel unforgettable, not because they are dramatic or demanding, but because they carry presence and depth long after the physical bond has ended. To experience a Scorpio moon fully is to experience someone who will never let go emotionally, not out of attachment, but out of reverence. And for those rare souls who meet them fully and honor that depth, the bond is eternal, living quietly, profoundly, and unshakably within the Scorpio moon's heart. Closing, depth as a burden and a gift. Living with a Scorpio moon means carrying oceans in a world that prefers puddles. It means feeling everything, remembering everything, and loving everything, not recklessly, but fully, deliberately, and without compromise. It means walking through life with a quiet awareness that most cannot match, surrounded by people who skim where they dive. It is a life of intensity, of profound connection, and deep solitude. A life where silence speaks louder than words, where trust is earned, where love is given in totality, and where loyalty never dies. And it is a life both sacred and heavy. Because the world often misunderstands them, it often undervalues their depth, it often pressures them to conform to a lighter, easier pace. And yet the Scorpio moon endures, carry the weight of their emotions, the history of their connections, and the lessons of their pain, all without apology. Some will never understand them, some will never meet them fully, but those who do, even for a moment, will never forget the experience. Because living with a Scorpio moon is not about casual presence, it is about emotional truth, unfiltered and eternal. Some things will never be explained, some depths will never be plumbed, some connections will remain sealed, preserved, and unspoken. And that is the beauty of it. To encounter a Scorpio moon is to witness something rare, sacred, and profoundly alive. And though they may move silently through the world, their presence, their intensity, their memory, their love lingers indelibly in the hearts of those who truly notice.